Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Heartland Farm for this week's episode of The Toy and the Real McCoy. Something different this week. We're not doing a tractor, we're going to do a truck, and we're going to do a bunch of American history. As I've been leading you on all week long, those of you 50 and older like me might remember some of the things I'm going to talk about, and those of you less than 50, pay attention. You're going to learn some stuff that was totally different. I don't know how long this one's going to be today, depends how much I remember to tell you, but there's an awful lot to go on here. So Dave, come on in here. We've got some toys for you here from a time in our life called the Cold War. This was a time when we were all at the ready for a nuclear attack from the people on the other side of the world in the United Soviet Socialist Republic, shortened up to be Russia. They've made a lot of news lately, and this is probably what's made me want to do this vehicle and this presentation today instead of at another time. So first I'm going to show you a beautiful true scale international pickup. This is an S series pickup. Pretty basic, but it's a pressed steel truck. Very nice toy. I bought it at auction. It is replicated to be a 56 or 57 international S series pickup. By the aggressive front tires, it kind of replicates a four-wheel drive. Beautiful step side body on it. The True Scale Company was in Rockford, Illinois, and they were later purchased by the Ertl Company out of Dyersville, Iowa, which is very famous for farm toys and some toy trucks as well. Another replica that we've got here is from First Gear, a company in Peosta, Iowa. And Peosta is just outside Dyersville. It is the farm toy capital of the world out there. This is a 1/34 scale international travel-all of the first year. This would be a 1953 or 54 travel-all. Travel-all was what used to be known as a panel truck, but with windows in it. It was kind of the original sport utility vehicle well before the years of the Chevrolet Suburban. It's a highly detailed little truck. Now, of course, I am an avid international collector. This is the proper way for the hood to open on that, just so you know. And then another First Gear. This one's a bit morbid, I'm sorry. This is a coroner's vehicle, and it is a international panel van. And this was before they called them the Travel-All, and we got a stiff in the back right there. But those things happen, you know, that's the other end of life. And so it's the same vehicle as that, but this is the paneled side one. So back to the Cold War. We were in a time that was unusual. I was very scared as a little boy to be at school and have those bomb drills where we used to crawl under our desk. It used to ring an alarm. Some of you, the 50 and older set, is going to remember that. And we were trying to avoid direct collapse of our school, if you would, onto us, so we hid under the desk. Now, if we were at ground zero and the bomb hit in our town, we were done. We were going to be obliterated. But let's just say Albany got bombed. We would get the fallout here, and we would also get the aftershock of that terrible atomic bomb that we all feared. So that's why we had to crawl under our desk. And at home, they had you stand in your doorways or get down in your basement if the bomb siren from the local fire department was to blow. The kids' toys of the day were kind of based around the space age and what we all feared, the missile. So here's a beautiful Nylon missile carrier, a toy from the 1950s. And it's kind of accurate to what we feared at the time. And Nylon, of course, was a pressed steel company, pressed steel toy company, and they subsequently were purchased by the Ertl Company as well. So the toys on this are kind of varied. None of them are exact like the real McCoy we're going to talk about. What I'm really going to talk about is America during the Cold War. If you look around your community, oftentimes the old post offices, some of the schools, you'll see these fallout shelters. These were set up for you to go and take cover from nuclear fallout, the radiation, if you would. I find this very interesting and an intriguing part of my life because I was so scared as a little boy to think that I'd be trapped at school while these nasty Russians bombed the United States of America, and I would be separated from my mother who was raising me. So because I've had this lifelong interest in this and this fear, if you would, I've taken a great interest, and I've watched all the civil defense films on YouTube and all that stuff. And I think of this time, and I have all this memorabilia that I'm going to share with you. There's a actual civil defense official vehicle sticker that would have been, if somebody had a vehicle deputized, if your civil defense director in your community decided that you were going to be a part of the active civil defense protection of the community. Mail trucks and things like that would have been immediately pressed into service. The Civil Defense Office was established by President Truman in December 1950, and it operated until 1976. At that point, it was disbanded and it was replaced by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Act. So that's where FEMA came from and where civil defense went. We're going to talk about the civil defense days. Before I get into this, there's a lot of things we all were ready for. You had these warning signals. These were passed out in schools. They were in all public buildings so that you knew what the alert meant when you heard the siren. Now these are actual period correct signs from the 1950s, and they made it all the way through the Cold War. But if you'll see the corners are nibbled, that wasn't a mouse, that was our kitten Oliver. So my wife put a little sign in the bag that I keep those in. It says they made it all the way through the Cold War, but they couldn't stand a month with Oliver. So anyways, as the Civil Defense Office was created, so there was handouts all the time and things to try to keep the population of the United States safe. These were handed out in school. This is what about you in civil defense. And what you can do in civil defense, it was to keep up your morale and all this stuff about the Russian attacks that would potentially happen to us here in the country. By the way, if you would be good enough to share these, we are going to have the drawing here at the end for whoever shared last week. If you have a vehicle from the late 50s all the way up till 1963 with an AM radio, if you look at the dial at 640 and 1240 on the AM dial, would be the Connell red symbol, which is a civil defense symbol right there, and that's where you were to tune your radio in for detailed emergency instructions on what to do in case we were under attack by those dastardly Russians. So all the communities, there was no federal money for this. So what they did was they set up the office, and then they said to all the local communities, you all need to establish a civil defense authority. Get volunteers, get vehicles. Sometimes the state emergency management office provided money so that they could buy vehicles to have for civil defense. We're going to eventually here in a minute get onto a civil defense truck, but here is a literature on a medium duty. They did three sizes. They did a light duty, a medium duty, and a heavy duty. That happens to be a 50s International R series, and that was considered the medium duty rescue truck. And you can see the complement of material that was in there to help someone during a crisis, whether it was a natural disaster or if it was indeed a nuclear attack by the Russians. And here's, you see school children out there being familiarized with civil defense and the civil defense authorities in the community. This is all so interesting to me. Here's a 57 International S-120 civil defense truck. This was the light duty. This was a factory four-wheel drive. It was the second year that International offered this chassis with a factory four-wheel drive. It's got a Dana 44 front drive axle, which has been used in many trucks over the years. This is the early use of the 44, sitting in front of what looks to be a municipal firehouse, Columbus and Franklin County, and I really don't know what state. Here shows the literature of the small rescue truck and the full complement of material that would be in there. And we're going to focus on one of those here in just a minute. Find it very interesting. It was a scary time, and some of you are going to remember back, and others of you aren't going to remember it at all. There's a medium duty, an S-182 International, that was also available for civil defense purchase. There was a company called Special Equipment out in Ohio that modified a standard International truck to be this civil defense vehicle. So, I'm going to change hats, put on my civil defense helmet, and I'm going to show you our civil defense truck. This is a 57 International S-120, considered a 3/4 ton truck. This was a civil defense vehicle in Southbridge, Massachusetts. When the Civil Defense Authority was disbanded, it was bought surplus by the fire department out in Southbridge, Mass. It sat in a corner of the firehouse, rarely used, until a wonderful man named Ed Baldiga and his wife Donna purchased it and did a total restoration on this truck. They are the same age as I am. They remember the bomb threat years. They remember Bert the Turtle, which was a cartoon to teach kids to duck and cover in the event of a nuclear attack by the dastardly Russians. Up on top of this S-120, you see a Stokes rescue basket. You see the big whip antenna for radio communication. This truck has about 9,000 miles on it. Has a non-synchronized 4-speed transmission. It has a new Process 201 2-speed transfer case. Under the hood in this truck is an International Black Diamond, a BD 264 engine. You'll see all kinds of civil defense literature and memorabilia in there. You'll see the Warden's badge is up on the dash in the ashtray. Oops, I should have had it out of the ashtray. Sorry about that. It's the sound of a federal siren. Up on the front, you got an 8,000-pound power takeoff operated Ramsey winch. You've got searchlights. This truck was there for natural disasters or in the event of a nuclear attack. Rescue ladders up on the top. Our truck has incidentally been featured in the international truck magazine called International Trail. You'll see it right in there. I fell in love with this truck at the American Truck Historical Society National Show in Springfield, Massachusetts in 2012. It was owned by Ed and Donna Baldiga, wonderful people. I fell right in love with it, and I tried to buy it on the spot. And Ed said, "No, sorry sir, it's not for sale." Due to circumstances beyond his control, he decided in 2015 to let the truck go, and he sold it to me. He kept my name and number, and I appreciate that so much. He and Donna spent an immense amount of time finding all the stuff that would be on that inventory that I just showed you that would have been in this truck. This truck has everything from Geiger counters for measuring radiation all the way to toe tags for corpses. We've added a couple of things that wouldn't have come in it, but we did add them and we want to show them to you. This is an armband that would have been on the Civil Defense Warden's writ on his arm, on his jacket if you would. You got a small fire suppression system. You've got a civil defense rescue generator. There's a radio telephone right here. There's rechargeable lanterns, some more helmets so you knew who the officer was in command. Geiger counters so that you could check radiation. Sterno for canned heat. Here, bring some reality home right here, is a sanitation kit. This is something I purchased on eBay that is a civil defense replica, or not replica, but an actual new old stock from the 50s. There's 10 rolls of toilet paper, a can opener, 60 plastic liners, a toilet seat to sit on this bucket, a siphon spout, cups and lids, an instruction sheet, sanitary napkins, and that is supposed to be enough sanitation for a group of X amount of people. There's also a big can of canned water that we have. I intended to have out here and didn't. I'll put the toe tags away. Dave, zero in on that. Those are 1960 civil defense crackers. Those are from the Kroger company. We also have a set of Nabisco crackers, never been opened. I'll bet you after 70 years that those are, 60 plus years, that those are real tasty at this point. Just wanted to show you what life was like back in the 1970s and in the 60s and in the 50s and the threat that we were all under. And I guess given the fact that things are going on in the world as they are right now and there's such terrible atrocities happening, you can't ignore history. And the more you ignore history, the more likely it is to repeat itself. So that's why I wanted to share with you this truck. My sons and I took this over to the Hemmings Motor News get-together in 2016. It caught the attention of the people at Hemmings, and they invited us to go to their Concours d'Elegance, which happened to be held in Lake George, and it did win a trophy up there as a favorite. It was voted favorite truck at the Hemmings Drive-In that night in August of 2016. And after we won at the Concours d'Elegance in Lake George, the director of the Saratoga Auto Museum came to us and said, hey, this truck is really unique. It's a real part of history. We'd like to have it on display. So it spent from the fall of 2016 into the summer of 2017 at the Saratoga Auto Museum at their Wheels at Work exhibit. Once again, we ask you to share our videos if you would. We thank you very much for joining us. This one's maybe not as much fun as some of the other stuff, kind of some sobering facts. Once again, we put the names of anyone who shares our videos in a hat. We will send you a hat and a t-shirt. I'm going to shake this up. Here, Wilbur, we're going to have a guest today. You can reach in there and you can pull out this week's winner. Only one, Wilbur. All right. So our winner of the hat and shirt for this week is A.J. Fletcher. My goodness, we know A.J. Fletcher. And his dad's going to be up here and be a guest one day on the Toy and the Real McCoy because he's got a real connection to one of our trucks as well. So AJ, we'll be making sure you get a hat and a shirt. Folks, we thank you for spending your time, part of your Sunday afternoon with us. Once again, we ask you to share this video. We also ask you to please pray for the people of Ukraine. What's going on in this world right now is something that we haven't seen in my lifetime. We pray to God that He watches over the people of Ukraine. We wish you all a safe week. We'll see you next Sunday. And I also want to put a plug in for you. And next Sunday's going to be a fun one, by the way. It's going to involve beer drinking. I also want to put a plug in for the Meekum Gone Farming Spring Classic Auction, which will be held on the 25th and 26th in East Moline, Illinois. You can watch it on RFD TV, 10:30 to 12:30, a live broadcast. Those nice folks at Meekum have asked me to come out and help describe some of the tractors and trucks that are going to be sold for the TV audience. So I'm excited to be out there and participate. And maybe, good Lord willing, I get my wife to bid on something and we'll add a tractor to our collection. Have a great week. God bless you all, and thanks for joining us.